Hey everybody, Scoutcrafter here again. It's Friday, and it doesn't seem to mean as much for a lot of people that have been home all week anymore. Friday used to be something to really cherish and look forward to, but I guess if you've been home, just another day, right? Well, I finally did it. I couldn't take it anymore. I had to cut my own hair. And I'm sure I'm not the only one walking around with homemade haircuts these days because no barbers are open. I mean, and especially here in New York, that would be ground zero to sit in a barber shop. But I did it. I used the old Oster clippers, and when I was a kid, I guess when I was younger, and I was born with pretty thin hair, kind of thin hair, and my dad was, not educated as far as schooling goes. He only made it up, didn't even make high school, I don't think, but he was one of the smartest guys I ever met. And my dad wanted to thicken up my hair. So what he did was he would take me to the barber shop. We would go like every couple weeks, and he would get a buzz cut, a crew cut at the time. And so I had a buzz or crew cut from the age of, I guess from about 7 years old, all the way up till I was like 13, 14. And by that time, it really thickened up my hair, And so I was thinking about that today. I always loved going to the barber, once you started going into school, high school and stuff, you didn't want to have those, crazy buzz cuts anymore. But I enjoy it. I always did. I always went to old-fashioned barbers, and I was always intrigued by the barber equipment, the cutters and the barber chair and all remember that little tub of blue liquid, that, disinfectant that they would put the combs in. It's just everything about the barber shop was a joy for me. And that's the one thing I have to say, when years from now, when people look back and they go, boy, that coronavirus, how was it for you? I said, believe me, it wasn't nothing for me, except for the fact that I couldn't go to the barber. That was the worst part of it. Anyway, for today, I got a couple things I've been thinking of from reading in the comments, and there was one other item I've been dying to get to, so let's get to it right now. Now, our last project was this beautiful screwdriver, kind of unusual. And it was funny because I usually don't do this, but there was some footage. I was kind of running late, and I missed two snippets of footage. And it's so funny because a good friend of the show by the name of Vincent Wieselowski, a fellow Pole, I take it. I'm part Polish, very proud of that. And anyway, Vincent had said, he says, it's obvious you didn't use Kiwi Parade gloss. He was busting my chops because that's a Marine Corps polish. And it turns out, let me show you this, the footage here, and you could see, look at that. Kiwi Parade gloss, and that's exactly what I used, and then, it's something, because you can make this into a shiny, but here's the problem we're going to talk about today. I thought we would talk about the reason people say, I haven't seen one of these, you don't see leather handled, and it feels nice in the hand, but let me tell you why you don't see leather handled tools too much. See, whoever came out with this years ago, when these were new, they look great. Leather looks, really nice, stacked, but just like wood and metal tools, it has its issues. Now, leather, just like wood, has two grains. The first grain is called a side grain, okay? And that's this over here. This is all side grain. And then over here, this little area here is called end grain. Now, anything that has end grain to it is always a little bit of an issue, You don't see end grain usually on front. They try and hide the end grain because end grain really absorbs the stain and other things, and it could be a problem, where side grain is very easy to work with, sand down and stuff. End grain always has a problem because the grains are just like a stack of straws if you were holding it, and this is how the tree grows. It sucks the moisture up through the end grain up to the branches, and over here, the side grain is where you can sand it down and get nice smooth areas. So same thing with leather. Leather has an end grain and a side grain, and this is all end grain because they're stacked. It's a stacked leather handle. And it's the same thing with today's project that we're going to hit today. And this is what we're going to hit. Now, the reason that you don't see too much of these anymore is because although they look beautiful when they're new, they are a problem, just like wood and metal, you know, because the wood expands different than the metal. Well, the end grain leather has always been a problem, and you'll see, because a lot of these, they either are nice or they're horrible, you know, and that's the problem. This one here is actually nice, but when they have a leather out of the factory, they dip it in a lacquer, and that seals the grain. And because it seals the grain, it will behave for a while. However, after a time in the field and whatnot, the lacquer wears off, and that's when you have the problem. Now it absorbs moisture, and you can see here, it's a little worn for wear, and it starts to expand and contract, and that's why you get the bumpy appearance, and they get the wavy, and they start to fall apart and rot and whatever. That's why leather's not a fantastic material, and that's why you don't see many of them. Now, this one here, the reason you have to seal the grain, so that's what I did with the shellac. That seals it. Shellac is really good because you can thin it out, which I did, and it absorbs deep into it, and it really, you don't have to worry it'll last much longer. Now, that's the reason you only see these leather handles are either in great condition or bad condition, is because once that lacquer disappears from a couple of years of use, if you don't use the tool often and get hand oil and things like that on there to keep it supple, it will destroy itself, fall apart. That's why when you restore it, you want to seal the grain, and then you can put a coating on or whatever. But if you want to try and put some kind of a moisturizer or any kind of leather treatment on here, once you do that, you are a slave to this handle. You have to do that all the time, or it'll dry out and then eventually crack. Okay, so for today's project, another project from, Juan Marquez sent me that huge box, 25 pounds of tools, and I didn't want to bring that upstairs, so that's why I've been hitting a lot of those tools, so I don't have to lug that box upstairs. But anyway, another great one from Juan. This one here, as soon as I saw this, I love these, I love knives, to begin with. But let's look at what we have here. Okay, now here, this one here is split, because what happens is, I'll show you a cross section of what these leather bands look like. Let's look exactly what we have going on here. Now, this type of knife here, I'm not going to be taking this knife apart because there's no sense in creating a whole bunch of work for yourself that you don't. I'm just doing a cleanup on this, and let me show you what we have underneath here. This is called a split Tang knife. The knife probably looks like this, has a center void in a section with two parts of the knife coming down. It's either attached in the back or not. It's probably just not, probably like this. And you can see here, now look, there's the split Tang, and there's the blade. Here is the guard, right? You can see here. And this is what the guard looks like. The guard here has a little two holes in it that you can pass the split through, and this is what the leather would look like, a side view of the leather. Before, when it goes on, it's square like this, like an H. They would just stack it on, place it on here until it stacks up, and then they put the end cap on, and then they take it and they sand it all down and make it like this, So this here, you can see here, there's the two, the two Tangs that are coming down. You see there's pins on each side because you got to pin both ends of the Tangs, the split Tang. And you can see here, there's holes on each side, but this is a little loose. So we're going to have to fix this. We're going to have to address that. We want to tighten that up. We're going to clean up the whole knife. And again, the back here, you can see the back has some, this is typical wear and tear, and you can see the blade. I'm excited to get to this because I love knives and I love restoring this type. Let's get to it. Okay, here we are at a post-wire brush evaluation, and again, just to take off the rust. Now, it has like a little bit of a, they call this like a blood groove over here, and that's always a little bit harder to deal with on the belt sander because, you can't get, it's tough to get in there, but we'll work with it. You see there's, pits and striations. This knife is indeed a Western. You can see here, Western from Boulder, Colorado. I am a big fan of Western knives, only for the way they look. As far as performance goes, they were, decent knives, but they always had a beautiful look. Again, they specialized in the leather handles, but the leather handles over years, when they're new, they look beautiful. The back here, this is aluminum. So you don't want to really attack this with the wire brush. We will sand this down, get this really nice. Remember what it looks like with all the dings and the dents and everything. And we'll get that real nice. Remember here, we want this to pop. So we're going to take it to the belt sander now. We're going to reprofile this down so that we can work on it. And then we got to fix the loose guard. Now, I mixed up some slow set epoxy. I taped everything off and poured it into that gap, making sure that using a rubber band to pin this one way so it's level. And when that hardens up, we'll be finished. Now you know my favorite part. Remember what this knife looked like before we started. And we're calling this knife done. Boy, this came out really nice. I'm really happy with this. Look at the handle. And that's just buffed out. You know, we will have to keep up with this because I didn't seal it, like I was saying before. So this will have to be waxed, and also shoe polish works really good. But look at the blade here. You see here? There was a lot of pitting in the blade, but was able to get it back to somewhat of a shine. This here, the guard, filled that whole gap in with epoxy. There's nowhere for that to go. That's on there super tight. Cleaned everything up. Look at the rear butt cap here. Isn't that nice how that came out all polished out? Aluminum always comes out beautiful. And again, I'm shocked at how nice the handle came out. Did a quick sharpening. I don't keep mine razor sharp, but you know, enough to do the paper cut test, you know. So it works. It's sharp. Like I said, I don't keep it scary sharp because I wind up cutting myself. That's just the way I roll. And so let's see what else we can do. See if I can make some kind of holster, you know, like a sheath, the way we like to do it. Let's see what we can do. Okay, we're able to knock this one out in about an hour. It's you know, once you make a couple, it gets much easier. But isn't that beautiful? It's super lightweight. But now, because of the shape of this blade, because it's a little wider down here, I had to make it tight because, you know, you don't want this it to rattle around. So watch how this fits. This goes in here like this, right? Now look at that. You couldn't get this off here if you wanted to unless you pull it out, you know. So that's the beauty of a precision fit. And to do that, you have to set your table saw the same thickness as your blade. You see the blade here, that thickness is the same exact thickness as that little spacer in between the two pieces of wood, and that's what gives you that nice snug fit. Isn't that nice? No rattle. And we'll figure out a frog and a color. So that's it for now. Okay, so I did the sheath in a gun stock, and I'm thinking about it, saying, you know what? This really needs, you know, with the dark handle. I'm going to do this in a gloss black, so I'm going to spray over this gloss black. The stain acts as a good sealant anyway, so you'll get a better coating for paint. So we'll spray it real quickly. Black. I promised I would show this in one of the videos, and I want to put a keeper on here, you know, to snap around. So the one thing you want to do is make sure you have enough room on the keeper like this on a piece of leather. You punch your 2 holes in here like this, one on each end. And then what you do is the snap system they sell, Tandy sells these kits, and it has 4 pieces. What happens is the one piece goes in here like this and puts in here. That's the base. The base also has the part here that will snap. Now you see that little on the inside here, if you look closely, you'll see that's protruding up here. And then you use this little tool. And this little tool, if you look at the tip of there, you could see that what it does when you bang this down, it'll flare that little tip and lock that in there. And then you do the same with this side, and this side has the other part, that's the female more or less, and you do the same thing with this tool, flare it out, and then what happens is you have a snap system that works, and I'll show you that. Okay, we attached the bottom part. Now we're going to attach the top part here. Now, if you notice, there's a dome shape on the top of this button, and they sell these little anvils that are domed to match this here. So you place this on top of the little anvil, and again, you take your little expanding tool, put it in the top of that open tube, and you just knock it down like that, and you can see it expanded the inside there. Now you have a snap that'll snap like this on here, and then you can unsnap it, you know, for you to hold your knife. So that's how that works. Okay, we're calling this finished, and again, we did the scabbard and the frog in a black, just a regular black, and left the scabbard in natural with just a conditioner on there. And it's a nice setup. And again, I'm right-handed, so to take the knife out, you would just flip this over with the thumb. That releases it, and then pull out the knife. And again, the beauty of this is that because it's a snug fit, this will not come off under any circumstance. But it is always nice to have that extra security of a keeper button on here just in case. So that's today's project. Hope you enjoyed it, and again, thanks. Closing, I once again, thanks to Juan Marquez for the wonderful knife, and thanks to all of you for watching. I hope you have a nice weekend. Take care now. Bye bye.